I just don't understand why people are always mowing their lawn when I'm filming, man. Like, do they know that I'm filming and that's when they put it on? They try to annoy me. As a text that has many stories inside it, a really easy trap students fall into is thinking of their pieces of evidence inside each paragraph, much like a shopping cart. I see time and time again students picking up one example from one story, one example from another story, and before you know it, a paragraph has 5 to 6 examples from all different stories. This isn't an effective way of writing at all, because you're not diving deeper into the ideas of growing up Asian in Australia. By using lots of examples, you're merely staying on the surface. So how do you make a genuine connection between the stories that's going to elevate you to the next level and put that difference between you and all the other students studying this text? What we're going to do is look at how we can build more meaningful connections between the stories so that you can dive deeper into your analysis and offer something that's original and unique for your teacher. Make sure you stay until the end of this video because I'm going to give you an A+ sample paragraph example, and I'm also going to give you an exercise that you can try and do yourself and then show you the A+ example that I have for that as well. Hey guys, my name's Lisa. In case you didn't know, I achieved the top 2% of my English cohort and I've been making English videos ever since. On this channel, I give you easy to understand, valuable and effective advice to help you boost your English marks. So don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button. So again, instead of shopping listing examples, we want to make our essays more in depth. So you want to hone on specific connections between the stories. So how does this work? The anthology is divided into sections which revolve around key themes, like un-Australian, leaving home, battlers and mates, and more. Within a section, say Strine, you want to identify similarities in how the stories within that section contribute to our overall understanding of that theme. You also want to identify differences to explore how stories can be unique and nuanced, which will provide your essay with more depth when you ultimately need it. Don't forget to keep watching because I'll show you how to use these similarities and differences in a sample essay paragraph. Let's start off building these connections in our first section, Strine. Strine is what's called a syncope, a shortened way of pronouncing Australian, a bit like Australia. It refers to Australian English as it's spoken by locals. This section of the book is all about language and about the difficulties of juggling 2 languages growing up. And Badami and Seng's stories are great examples of this. Let's look at the similarities and differences between the two. Similarity. Connections to one's mother tongue fade over time. Seng recounts how, one by one, she and her sisters stopped learning Chinese as they progressed through their Australian education. Badami, on the other hand, compromises his name, which stood out as too Indian, when he just wanted to fit in. Another similarity. For third culture kids, losing knowledge of their language also strains their relationship with their forebears. Badami's mother is shocked to hear the anglicization of his name, despite the significance it carries for her. She spat my unreal name out like something bitter and stringy. And Seng describes the experience of communicating with her father in Chinglish so they can both understand each other. Let's look at a difference. Language can be an internalized personal experience or a highly exposed and interpersonal one. While Seng feels her loss of language as a sense of shame, a vague unease, Badami is almost bullied into changing his name. Sunil, like banana peel? Let's now look at an example paragraph drawing upon these similarities and differences. Many migrants lose connections to their heritage over time, and these connections are often in the form of language. Particularly for Asian migrants, there's not a strong need to preserve their mother tongue in the English-speaking Australia, and as such, their knowledge of those languages can be easily lost. At this point, I'd be thinking, which stories in Strine show this and how? Ivy Seng, for instance, recalls how she was never able to grasp the significance of learning Chinese as a child, and eventually she and her sisters would prioritize study and other academic pursuits over learning Chinese. Because tertiary study and education as an institution generally carry a lot of weight in migrant cultures, there is often a compromise made at the expense of heritage and language. Here you should be thinking, what else might language be sacrificed for? These compromises can come from other factors as well. So here we're now starting to think about some differences. particularly the group dynamics of being in white-dominated Australia. Bullying is a frequent culprit, and Badami, for example, is indeed peer-pressured into resenting and ultimately anglicising his name Sunil, like banana peel. More generally speaking, a sense of shame for one's difference is a common part of the migrant experience. Law experiences it as well at theme parks, where he and his siblings attempt to set themselves apart from the faux pas of their parents. Not always an intentional goal, but a general willingness to compromise connections to heritage underscores many Asian Australian migrant stories, particularly of second-generation migrants. Notice how throughout this essay paragraph, I'm not really being specific in saying the similarities are, the differences are. It sort of just blends together naturally. That's sort of what you want to be aiming for. And something as simple as not being so obvious in pointing out a similarity and difference while still actually putting in the similarity and difference is actually what makes your discussion more nuanced and more interesting to read than somebody who's just like listing out the similarities and differences. So now the next step. What I'm going to do is give you an exercise, and then I'm going to direct you to a sample essay paragraph that we've done so that you can go and try it out yourself and then see how we've done it and compare it with your own. Maybe check out some of the ideas that do overlap between yours and ours, or maybe see, what ideas have you missed out on? What could you have mentioned that you just completely forgot? So I'm going to give you the clan section, and I want you to specifically look at Law and Chau's stories. Let's go through a couple of similarities and differences, and then it'll be your turn to try writing the paragraph on your own. The clan section delves into the complex ties that hold migrant families together. Chau's poems are starkly different to Law's story, so it'll be interesting to compare how these different narrative forms work to explore these ideas. Let's look at the first similarity. It can take at least one generation for migrant families to dig their roots into their new home. While Law's parents are proud tourists at Queensland theme parks, he and his siblings groan at their comportment. Chau's poem, The Firstborn, traces his ancestry forward until he arrived, an ABC, and his son by amniotic C, both of them born into Australia. Another similarity. Family dynamics are still traditional and therefore gendered. Law notes how his mother's health suffered during divorcing his father, and Chau notes that the women members of his family were cast off the family tree, as if they were never born. Let's look at two differences. Family history and heritage can vary in importance. Chau's family traces back 28 generations of history, whereas Law's family very much lives in the present. The only tie to older generations is being his mama or grandma. And another difference, families show their love in different ways, whether it's dedicating a poem to his son about his life as one of 10,000 rivers of Chinese diaspora into the Australian Sea, or taking the kids to theme parks on weekends. All sorts of affection can hold families together. Try to write up an essay paragraph just based on the similarities and differences based on a theme that you see within these two stories. I'll also link you now to the blog that we've got on Growing Up Asian Australia, where I've got the sample A+ paragraph for you based on what we've talked about in this video, but also for the clan. And there's also a few extra exercises for you to go through over there as well. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like it so that I know, especially if you want more videos on this, and make sure you subscribe and hit that bell button, and I'll see you later. Bye.